And as he's looking around, there are no additional footprints in his camp. He can see everywhere that he walked and everything he did, but there's nothing coming into his camp from somewhere or leading out of his camp from somewhere. It's like somehow this happened without any presence whatsoever.
So, once again, you found yourself at the campsite of the Orator. But please pull up a chair. As you can see, my fire is stoked, which means tonight I have another tale to tell. But before I begin, if you do find yourself enjoying this kind of content, first-hand accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, that allow the spirits to guide your plan, check to both the like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. That way, you get notified every time I upload new content, and it allows me to continue to do what I love, which is telling terrifying tales. Second, all of my stories are first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal. Today's story comes from us originally from a Reddit post by a guy named Barabbas1840. I will link that post in the description, but I contacted him, reached out, we talked a little bit, and I'm going to feature his story today. But if you have a story that you would like featured here on The Orator, the easiest way to reach out to me is on my social media. You can get a hold of me in the comments below, but I tend to find that it's really difficult to communicate that way. So if you want your story shared, reach out to me, TikTok, email, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter. I pay attention to all of them, and I will be able to get back to you, collect your story, and hopefully feature it here one day on The Orator. And lastly, throughout the months of June and July, I've been running a contest. There will be 7 lucky winners to that contest, and it is coming to a close. Today will be my last video that is going to participate within that contest. This is how it works. There are 7 lucky winners. The 7 lucky winners will get a custom Orator trading card created by a company called Jack's Attic. Jack's Attic does a bunch of horror pop weirdness, all sorts of really cool memorabilia, but one of their specialties is literally horror trading cards. And so these are custom-made, really well-done horror trading cards. Every single one of them is unique. They've each been burned by the Orator's campfire, and so each burn mark is unique. They're numbered originally 1 through 20. There are only 7 left. So each winner is going to get one of those. They're also going to get a letter by me. They're going to get one of my new business cards that I just got, and they're going to get a drawing for my 7-year-old daughter who's into really creepy stuff and really wanted to also contribute something. And so how do you win that? You comment on all of my videos in the months of June and July. And at the end of this video, at the end of the month of July, I'm going to draw 7 names out of a hat, and those 7 people are going to win. How do you improve your chances? Comment on multiple videos. Every single time you comment on a video, your name gets put in the hat. So if you comment on 3 or 4 videos, you'll get 3 or 4 entries into the contest. However, you can only comment once per video. So make sure you go back through all of my June and July videos, comment on every single one of them, do it as fast as you can, because once this contest is over, it's over. And now with all of that out of the way, let's get on to today's story. It is a tale that I call The Eagle. So it's 2022, and it's early summer, and Brad is very, very frustrated. He lives in central Idaho, and he has just been, for the last 6 months, going through a bunch of really crazy stuff. He left his job, and he went to do a startup company. He decided to pursue his own startup with his wife's blessing, and so he has been out of work for a while getting the startup company going. And if you've ever started a startup company, you know it just takes time. Before you start making money, you have to put a lot of money into it, and then there's a period of recouping that money and paying off debts and stuff like that, and it could be sometimes years before you end up making enough money to where you can sustain yourself. And so him and his wife are dealing with all the financial stress of that. On top of that, they've been trying to get pregnant for years and found out they just weren't able to, and so they were trying what's called IVF. And IVF basically is a scientific procedure, a medical procedure, where they fertilize an egg outside of the womb and then try to reintroduce it into the womb and grow a baby. And so it's kind of a straightforward procedure, but it took, and they got pregnant, had a baby, and so now on top of all the financial stress of leaving their job and trying to start this startup company, they have a new baby. And so Brad is just extremely overwhelmed with the whole situation, and he knows it's going to work eventually, but he's just in the trenches right now. And so he has a conversation with his wife, and together they decide that Brad needs to take a solo mini vacation, get away for just a couple of days, clear his head, and then once his head is cleared, he can come back and really just grind, go at this thing hard, make the money, and get through this period of financial stress. And so right away, Brad knows exactly what he's going to do. He's an avid outdoorsman, and he knows the exact spot that he wants to go. And so he picks a day in the middle of the week, a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and he said, you know what? I'm going to be gone Tuesday, I'm going to be gone Wednesday, and then I'll come back Thursday morning. It's just a couple of days. The wife gets some time with the baby alone. I get some time to clear my head, and then when I come back, I'm going to go ham on my business. And so he leaves on a Tuesday morning. He packs up all of his stuff. He's got his tent. He's got all of his outdoor equipment because he's going to go camping in the wilderness. Not at a campsite, but in the Northern Idaho mountains. And the only thing he takes other than his equipment and everything he needs to camp is his 2 blue heeler dogs, which he basically takes every single time he goes camping. And he heads out early, very early Tuesday morning before the sun even comes up. And by the time that it does come up, he is parking at the end of this old logging road. And it kind of opens up into this big circle that sort of acts as a parking lot for anybody who wants to go out into these mountains. And he pulls up, and it's completely empty. There's not another vehicle there. There's no signs that there's another vehicle there. And frankly, it's really early summer, and so he's not that surprised that there's nobody out there. It's a little early for them to be camping in these mountains because the elevation gets high enough to where it's still kind of chilly, and there will be snow and stuff like that. And so he gets out, he takes off, he's got his pack and everything, he gets his dogs, and they head out on the only trail that's available to them. It's one trail that goes straight up into the mountains, and over the next 5 miles or so, he climbs to an elevation of about 1,200 feet. And he knows when it plateaus, there's this giant, beautiful, pristine lake, and he's going to be able to do fishing and just enjoy the scenery, and that's where he's going to get a lot of his food from fishing and stuff like that. And so he finally makes his way to the one side of this lake, and he's noticing as he's getting up to that elevation that it's getting a little crazier than he thought it was going to be. He knew that there was going to be a little bit of snow and stuff like that, but there's still a lot of slush, and there's branches down, and nobody's really come through and cleared everything. And so this is a little bit more arduous of a trek than he was originally expecting. So when he gets to the lake, he decides to just take a little bit of a break. He sets everything down, he pulls out his fishing pole, and he fishes for a little while, and then he goes and he gathers some sticks, and he fills his canteen up with clean drinking water, and he spends maybe an hour just sort of relaxing before he starts to make his way along the trail, which sort of goes around this lake and then continues up the mountain, which is where he's originally going to camp. But as he's making his way around this lake, he's realizing that the terrain is just a little bit too aggressive, and he doesn't think he's going to go all the way to the elevation he originally thought he was going to do. And so instead, he makes his way around to the west side of the lake, and then once he's on the west side of the lake, he just leaves the trail, and he sort of goes off, and it's pretty treacherous terrain. There's a lot of these big snow embankments and dirt, and it's slushy, and even the dogs are having a difficult time trekking through all this. But they go, a little ways off from the trail, and once they're a little ways off, they find this perfect, beautiful clearing. There's no trees, it's a big, wide open circular space, and it looks relatively unharmed. And so Brad takes a little bit of time to clear everything out. He digs a little bit of a fire pit, he sets up his tent, and then, it's maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's thinking, perfect time to finish up and go down and catch and eat some dinner. And so right before he leaves, he takes his backpack, and he hangs it way up on a tree so that no wildlife can get to it, because he obviously has, provisions, food and stuff in the backpack. He doesn't want bears or raccoons or anything like that to get to it, so he hangs it way up in a tree. He grabs his fishing pole and his 2 dogs, and they make their way back to the trail, and then all the way around to the other side of the lake where the fishing is good, and that's where he sets up. And for the next few hours, he fishes and catches a bunch of fish. He builds a fire. He cooks the fish over the fire. Him and the dogs eat right there. And he is this was exactly what he needed. He was away from everything. The whole time he's up there, the whole time he's going up the trail, the parking lot, walking around the lake, There's nobody. There's literally not another soul anywhere else. He doesn't hear anything. He doesn't see anything. The dogs don't notice anything. And this is exactly what he wanted. He just wanted to be away from everything, away from civilization, and just enjoy his time and recharge his batteries. And he's getting that from this trip. So he's super excited. And so he finishes up. And at this point, it's dusk. The sun is definitely setting. It's getting darker, and so he's like, I still have to make my way back to the tent and everything and get everything set up there. I better start heading out. And so he packs everything up, and him and his dogs, they head back around the lake, and they head back off of the trail over all of these embankments, and at some point, they enter the big clearing that is their camping site, and they all stop. Brad and both of his dogs freeze, because in the center of the campsite, about 20 yards away from the tree that he hung it on, was his backpack. And this thing didn't look affected at all. Nothing had ravaged it, torn it up. The zippers were all zipped. It didn't look like anything was wrong with it whatsoever. It was sat perfectly upright, right in the middle of his camp. And the only thing that was weird about it, other than the fact that it had been moved, was there was this beautiful, large, pristine eagle feather laying across the top of it. And he sees it, and the dogs see it, and they all stop. And they're just sort of staring at it, and they're sort of staring around camp, and the dogs start growling. And so Brad knows something weird. I mean, already just from the visual he knows, but now the dogs are freaking out. He knows something weird is definitely going on. And so he is looking around, and he's trying to be very cautious, and he's getting this really overwhelming feeling that they are being watched from somewhere. But he's got his dogs, and he's got a big hunting knife at his side, and he's been out in the outdoors for a long time, and so he feels like he's pretty prepared for anything that might happen. And so he slowly makes his way into camp, and he picks up the eagle feather, and he's looking at it, he's looking around, and there doesn't seem to be anything. And he grabs his backpack, and he checks inside of it, and nothing's been stolen. All his food and provisions and his equipment, it's all still there. And so, as weird as it is, he thinks, all right, I think we're okay. And so he picks up his backpack, and he goes to head to his tent. And he stops right outside of his tent because right in front of his tent was this really weird thing in the dirt. It's like somebody had taken a stick and drawn this hieroglyphic, kind of, in the dirt. And as he's looking at this hieroglyphic, he's trying to figure out what it is. It's very clear the lines are, and he knew it wasn't there before, and he eventually puts it together. He thinks this is a hieroglyphic of a bird, maybe an eagle. He's got that eagle feather and now this hieroglyphic, and the whole thing is very weird, and he's still getting this sensation that he's being watched, and the dogs are still growling, and they're looking around. And yet, not only is the campsite completely empty, there's no animals or people or anything like that, he's thinking back to his whole trip. He didn't see anybody down at the base. He didn't see anybody on the trail. He didn't see anybody on the lake. They would have had to pass him to get to his campsite past the lake. He didn't see anybody pass him. The dogs didn't hear anybody. There was nobody further up on the trail. There were no footprints. And as he's looking around, there are no additional footprints in his camp. He can see everywhere that he walked and everything he did, but there's nothing coming into his camp from somewhere or leading out of his camp from somewhere. It's like somehow this happened without any presence whatsoever. And so he's getting really freaked out because this isn't an animal or anything like that. This is something beyond his understanding. And so he just doesn't know what else to do. And so instead he just gathers his dogs, leads them into the tent, and he builds the biggest bonfire he can build. He gets all of his wood together, he piles it up until he's got this inferno blazing outside of his tent, and he can see everything around him. And then he takes his dog in the tent, he's got a flashlight in his tent, and he's got his big outdoor knife in his tent. And he just zips it up, and his thought is, you know what, I'm just going to stay in here tonight, and hopefully everything will be better by tomorrow. And so he lays down, and the dogs, they're still very much on edge. And he just is like, you know what, we're safe, we got the bonfire, nobody's going to mess with us, I have this knife, I have my flashlight, we're good. And so he decides to finally settle in and go to sleep, and hopefully get through the night without any further incidents. But he starts hearing noises outside of his camp. At first, it sounds like maybe animals. There's some shrieking and howling. There's creatures moving around his campsite. You can hear the footfalls and stuff like that. But then, on top of all that, he hears very distinct yelling that does not sound anything other than potentially human. It doesn't sound like any animal he's ever heard before. And he's noticing that all of this activity that's happening, it's right around his campsite. It's like things are circling his campsite. You can hear branches snapping and trees being pushed over. All of this activity, but it's not like it's something moving from one place to another. It's like he's being encircled. And this shrieking and the screaming, and it's all getting louder, and the dogs are growling until he can't take it anymore. And he just grabs the zipper, unzips it, and puts his flashlight out to see if he can find anything, and everything goes totally silent, and there's nothing there. Like, he heard tramping and stuff right outside of his tent, and he's looking, and there's nobody. Nobody ran away. He thought maybe if I had the element of surprise, but there's nothing. And so he's even more freaked out, and he would like to leave, but it's now, at this point, late. The sun is completely down. He's in the middle of nowhere, so it's like outside of his fire, it is pitch black. It would be dangerous to trek that distance back to his car, those 5 miles anyway, because he's in the wilderness. So there really are wild animals out here that he needs to be careful about. And so he's very worried about everything, but really all he can do is get back inside of his tent and protect himself. And so he zips it back up, and he goes in, and he lays down, and basically immediately after he does, all of the noise continues, the tramping and the screaming and the shrieking, and it's freaking him out, but he's not going to do anything about it because there's really nowhere else he can go and nothing else he can do. And so he keeps his dogs close, and he's got his knife and his flashlight, and at some point, he somehow gets exhausted enough to where he manages to fall asleep. But just a little bit later, and he's not sure how long, but it was still dark, the dogs start growling again and wake him up, and they're right next to him. And so it's a very low, quiet growl that wakes him, and when he wakes up, he doesn't hear anything, but the dogs are growling. And so in his head he's thinking, this is such a quiet growl from these dogs, I bet they don't even know that I know that they're out there. So I'm going to freak them out right now. And so he gets right up to the tent as quiet as he can. He grabs the zipper, and he's got his flashlight off, and he's ready to turn it on and just scare whoever's messing with him. 3, 2, 1. He rips open the tent, shoots the flashlight up, and he's staring face to face, not more than 2 feet away, with a doe. And she looks at him, and he's looking back at her, and then he sees right next to her is her fawn, her little baby deer. And then as his eyes adjust, he's still got a little bit of firelight and stuff like that. The coals are still giving off enough light. He sees this huge herd of deer right in his campsite. And so for a minute, he forgets all of the freaky stuff and the weirdness and everything like that. And he's just sort of in awe of the majesty of being in the wilderness and seeing this beautiful herd of deer right in his campsite. But it's obviously very short-lived because he rips it open and shines his flashlight. They all look at him. He sees them. There's a moment of frozen time. And then the deer just leap. They just trample off in the forest, terrified of being surprised like this. And so he's hearing them crunch through the forest and everything like that. And his big sigh of relief because this is deer. This isn't anything super crazy. And at least things are going back to normal when all of a sudden, louder than the trampling of all these deer, echoing throughout the mountains, he hears this deep, crazy, maniacal, dark laughter of a man. And it's literally thundering and echoing throughout the entire mountains. And this laugh, this deep, dark, scary laugh, suddenly goes from laughing to crying. And then it sounds like a little child sobbing. And then it goes from this sobbing sound to this deep, guttural growl. And Brad remembers thinking, I've been in the outdoors my whole life. I've watched outdoor videos. I feel like I know everything that's out here and what it sounds like. And whatever that growling is, it ain't a dog or a wolf or a bear or anything I've ever heard before. And I don't think that it's an animal. He said he thought it was something else. He didn't know if it was human or what. It just didn't feel like an animal to him. And so right away he zips back up the tent. He turns off his flashlight. He grabs his dogs close. And he just sits there with his hunting knife in one hand, flashlight ready in another. And he literally just waits for hours as night passes and the sun slowly starts to rise again. And as soon as the sun was up, he literally just went outside. He unpacked everything that he had brought. He was supposed to be there for 2 days, but he was done. He unpacked everything. He headed right back to his truck as fast as he could with his dogs, packed everything in, and headed straight home to his wife. And now, Brad says he's still an avid outdoorsman. He still loves going camping and everything like that. But he does bring a few extra tools now, just in case something crazy like that happens ever again. So that's going to do it for today's tale. If you found yourself enjoying this one or any of the other ones on my channel, then please allow the spirits to guide your planchette to both the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload new content, and I get to continue to do the thing that I love, which is telling terrifying tales. Second, all of my stories are first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal, so if you or anyone you know has a story that might fit well on my channel, you may comment below and reach out that way, but the preferred method is to reach out to me on any of my social media. Easiest way for me to get in contact with you. We can get together, collect your story, and hopefully feature it one day here on The Orator. And lastly, this is the last video to end my contest for the months of June and July. So if you'd like your custom trading card, as well as a business card, a letter, and a picture, and you want to win that, make sure to go back, watch all my videos, leave comments on every single one of them to increase your chances to win. And so until next time, where you'll pull up your chair, my fire will be stoked, and I will have another tale to tell.